She married a man the whole city was afraid of. And on the coldest night of the year, that man looked her in the eyes in front of his entire family and told her she would not be sleeping in their bed. He sent her to the freezing guest wing with no heat and no key. He did it to break her, calmly, the way powerful men break things they think they own. What he did not know, what nobody in that house knew, was that by sunrise, the same man would be the one on his knees outside that door, in the cold, begging her to open it. This is the story of Asha and Joon, and the single night that almost ended them both. Asha did not grow up soft. She came from a family that built a small shipping empire from nothing, on a coast far from Seoul, and she learned 3 things before she learned to drive. She learned how to read a room, she learned how to follow money when people tried to hide it, and she learned that the people smiling at you across a dinner table are usually the ones already planning your fall. So when her marriage to Joon was arranged 2 years earlier, settling an old debt between her family and his, she walked into that cold marble house with her eyes wide open. She knew exactly what she was. She was an alliance, a signature, a foreign wife in an old money Korean family that had never once looked at her like she belonged. Joon was the head of the Hanwoo House, a name that meant business on paper and something far more dangerous underneath. Shipping contracts, private security, sealed deals that moved through the city like smoke. He was controlled, quiet, and feared. The kind of man who could end a conversation by simply going still. And in 2 years of marriage, he had never once told Asha that he trusted her. He had also, somewhere in those 2 cold years, fallen in love with her without ever admitting it. So had she. Neither of them said it. In that house, feeling something was a weakness, and weakness was how you lost everything. Here is what makes this story different from the start. Asha was not waiting to be rescued. She had a mission, and she had it long before any of the heartbreak began. For weeks she had been noticing a pattern. Sealed shipping contracts that should have been locked were quietly leaking to a rival council. Money that should have flowed one way was bending another. Someone inside the Hanwoo house was stealing from Joon, slowly and carefully, and Asha had seen it before Joon had. She was gathering proof, not to destroy her husband, to protect a man who had never given her a single reason to. If you are watching this from anywhere in the world tonight, do me a favor and drop your city in the comments. I genuinely want to see how far this story is traveling, because what happens next is the kind of betrayal that hits the same in every language. The man pulling the strings was Sung, smooth, ambitious, second in command, the kind of man who laughed at your jokes while measuring you for a coffin. Sung had spent years waiting just behind Joon's shoulder, and he had finally decided that waiting was for smaller men. He wanted the house, and he had figured out the one thing standing in his way. It was not Joon. It was Asha, because Asha was the only person paying attention. So Sung did not move against Joon directly. He moved against the wife, and he did it with a weapon every single one of us understands in the modern world. He used a video. It started on an ordinary cold evening. A sealed family contract, one of the house's most protected documents, suddenly surfaced in the hands of a rival council. Panic moved through the family like ice water. Someone had leaked it. And almost on cue, before anyone could even ask how, a second thing surfaced. A security clip. Grainy, time-stamped, undeniable. It showed Asha, Joon's own wife, sitting across a private restaurant table from Sung himself, leaning in close, speaking quietly. And alongside it, a thread of messages, supposedly from her phone, talking about money, about access, about handing things over. It was a lie. Every frame of it was a lie. Because what the clip did not show, what had been carefully cut away, was who Asha was really meeting that night and why. But Joon did not know that yet. All Joon saw was his wife, the foreign woman his family had whispered about for 2 years, meeting his rival in secret while a sealed contract walked out the door. They brought it to him in front of everyone. That was Sung's masterstroke. He did not whisper it in private where Joon could think. He made sure the elder, one, was in the room. He made sure Mina was in the room. He made sure the whole inner circle watched the clip play on a wide dark screen while Joon's face turned to stone. In that family, image was everything. Reputation was the real currency. And in that single moment, Joon was not a betrayed husband. He was a powerful man who had just been made to look like a fool in front of the people he ruled. And that is when pride did what pride always does. It reached for the cruelest thing within arm's length. Joon stood. He did not shout. The truly dangerous ones never shout. He looked at Asha, the woman he loved and had never told, and he said that she would no longer sleep in the main residence. He said it flat, like a sentence handed down by a judge. The unheated guest wing, the cold annex at the far end of the property, the one with no working heat and no key, on the very night Seoul dropped below freezing. He said it loud enough for the whole house to hear, because the punishment was not really about where she slept. It was a message. This is what happens to anyone who betrays me, even her, especially her. The room went silent. Mina, the elegant woman the elders had always wanted for Joon, lowered her eyes to hide a small, satisfied smile. One said nothing, watching, weighing, the way old, powerful men always do. And Asha did not cry. She did not beg. She did not give a single one of them the show they were waiting for. She stood up slowly. She looked at Joon, and there was no fear in her face, only something colder and far more frightening to a man like him. There was disappointment, the kind you feel for someone you expected more from. And then she turned, and she walked out of that warm hall with her head high, into the freezing dark, alone. And every step of that silence dug into Joon deeper than any scream ever could. Be honest with me here, because I need to know. If you were Asha in that moment, would you have stayed quiet and walked out with your dignity, or would you have torn the whole lie apart right there in front of everyone? Tell me in the comments, because what she chose to do instead is the smartest thing anyone in this story does all night. Because here's what the family did not understand. Asha walking into the cold was not surrender. It was a decision. She was not going to defend herself with words in a room that had already decided she was guilty. She was going to do the one thing she had been trained to do her entire life. She was going to find the proof. And she had less than one night to do it. The cold annex was brutal. Her breath fogged in the dark. The single thin blanket did nothing against the freezing air seeping through old windows. Any other person would have curled up and waited for morning, shaking, broken. Asha sat down on the edge of the cold bed, took out her phone, and went to work. She had two people in the world she could still trust. The first was Layla, her one real friend, warm and fierce and loyal. The only person in that whole city who had ever treated Asha like a human being instead of a contract. Asha messaged her first, not for comfort, but for cover. Layla would be her eyes outside the property, watching who came and who left, who was nervous, who was celebrating too early. And someone, somewhere in that house, was definitely celebrating too early. The second person was Jay. Jay ran the family's security and digital systems. He saw every camera, every door log, every file. He was quiet, careful, and he had two things that made him priceless that night. He respected Asha, who had always treated him like a person and not furniture, and he could not stand Sung. So when Asha sent him a single short coded message, asking only for the original unedited footage and the timestamp data behind the clip that had just destroyed her life, Jay did not ask why. He understood exactly what she was asking. She was not asking him to take her side. She was asking him to find the truth. Meanwhile, back in the warm heart of the house, Sung was already moving. Because framing the wife was never the goal. It was only the first step. With Asha discredited and Joon humiliated and emotional, Sung believed the house was finally his to take. And he had help. Because the elegant Mina, the approved match, The woman pouring Joon's drink and whispering in his ear that night was not just an old family favorite hoping to slide into Asha's place. Mina was Sung's secret partner in all of it. The leaked contract, the doctored video, the forged messages. The two of them had built this together, and Mina's job tonight was simple. Keep Joon angry. Keep Joon isolated. Keep Joon from doing the one thing that would ruin everything. Keep him from thinking. So Mina sat with Joon in his warm study while his wife froze across the property, and she poured poison as gently as she poured the whiskey. She told him this was always going to happen. She reminded him that the family had warned him that a foreign wife from a shipping family would always serve her own people first. She told him he had been too kind, too trusting, and look where trust had gotten him. And Joon, proud and wounded and surrounded by the smell of his own humiliation, listened. He almost believed her. Almost. Because something would not let him rest. He kept seeing Asha's face as she walked out. Not guilty. Not afraid. Disappointed. And in all his years of reading people, of staying alive by knowing when someone was lying, Joon had never once seen a guilty person look the way Asha had looked. A guilty person performs. A guilty person pleads. Asha had simply looked at him like he had failed a test she had quietly hoped he would pass. In the cold annex, Asha's phone buzzed. Jay had found something. The clip that destroyed her had a problem. The lighting on the timestamp did not match the lighting in the footage. The audio had a seam in it, a tiny splice where two recordings had been stitched together. The video was real, but it had been cut. Something had been removed. And whatever was removed was the only thing that mattered. Jay needed time to pull the full original from the deep archive, the raw file before anyone had touched it. He told her to hold on. He told her he was close. And this is the part that should make your blood boil. While Asha sat freezing in the dark, fighting to clear her own name and protect the very man who put her there, that man was sitting in a heated room being convinced she was a traitor by the actual traitor's partner. Type it in the comments if this makes you as angry as it makes me, because there is a special kind of fury in watching loyalty get treated like betrayal while the real snakes sit warm and smiling by the fire. But the night was turning. Slowly, in the dark, the truth was crawling back toward the light. Around the deepest hour, when the cold was at its worst and the whole house had gone quiet, two things happened at once. Leela messaged Asha that Sung had been seen leaving a private meeting with men from the rival council, the same council that had received the leaked contract, and that he looked far too pleased with himself for a man whose house had just been betrayed. And Jay messaged a single line. He had it, the full original footage, unedited, complete. Asha watched it on a freezing phone screen with shaking hands, and what she saw made her close her eyes in something close to grief. The clip was real. She had been at that restaurant, but she had not been meeting Sung to betray Joon. The full footage showed the whole conversation. Asha had gone there to meet a contact from the rival council herself, secretly, to trace where the leaked contract was going. She had been hunting the leak. And in the part that had been carefully cut away, Sung had appeared, uninvited, and tried to buy her. He had slid an envelope across the table and offered her money, real money, to stay silent and let the house fall to him quietly. And in the part Joon was never meant to see, Asha had pushed the envelope back across the table and said the words that now broke everything open. She had said she would never sell out the man she married. Not for any amount. Not ever. That was the line Sung had cut. That single sentence. Because that one sentence proved everything. It proved Asha was loyal. It proved Sung was the buyer, not her. And it proved that the man who tried to corrupt her was the same man who then framed her for the crime he himself had committed. Jay did not stop there. Along with the raw footage and the timestamp data, he had pulled something else from the system. Something Sung had been careless enough to leave traces of. intercepted messages between Sung and Mina. Plans, a timeline. Proof in their own words that they intended to seize control of the house the moment Joon discarded Asha. They had been counting on Joon's pride. They had built the entire plan around the certainty that a proud man, humiliated in front of his family, would throw his wife into the cold without ever checking whether the story was true. They had been right about his pride. They had been catastrophically wrong about everything else. Jay made a choice that could have cost him his life. He took the raw footage, the metadata, and a sealed envelope of those intercepted messages, and he walked it straight to Joon's study. Not to Asha, to Joon. Because Jay understood that the only way to truly save Asha was to put the unedited truth in front of the man who had condemned her, and let it do what truth does. Mina was still there when Jay entered. She saw the envelope. She saw Jay's face. And for the first time all night, the elegant calm slipped, just for a second, and something afraid flickered behind her eyes. Joon noticed it. Of course he noticed it. He noticed everything. That was who he was. Joon dismissed Mina from the room, and then, alone, he watched the real footage. He watched his wife refuse the money. He watched Sung's hand slide that envelope across the table. He heard Asha's voice, clear and steady, saying she would never sell out the man she married. The man she married. Him. He read the intercepted messages, his own second-in-command and the woman pouring his drinks, plotting his fall over the body of his marriage. And Joon, the controlled, the feared, the man who never broke, felt the entire night collapse inside his chest. He had not been betrayed by his wife. He had been protected by her. She had walked into danger to defend a house that never accepted her, to guard a man who never trusted her. And the moment she got close to the truth, the real traitor had used Joon's own pride as the murder weapon. Joon had taken the one person in the world who was loyal to him, and he had thrown her into the freezing dark to humiliate her. He had punished loyalty as if it were treason. And she had walked out without a word, because she already knew he would believe the lie. That was the disappointment in her eyes. She had hoped he would be better than his pride, and he had proven her right to expect the worst. There is a kind of silence a man falls into when he realizes the damage he has done cannot be undone with money or power, the only two things he has ever really had. Joon sat in that silence. And then he stood, and he did something the head of the Hanwoo house had never done in his life. He walked out of his own study and toward the cold, with no guards, no plan, and nothing left to protect him but the truth. The whole house promise of this story lives right here, so if it has its hooks in you, take 1 second to subscribe right now, because the next part is exactly what the title promised, and you do not want to miss how it lands. By the first gray light of dawn, Joon stood outside the locked annex door, in the cold he had sent her into, and he knocked. And when she did not answer, he knocked again. And then this man who ruled an empire by going silent began, quietly, to beg. He said her name. He said he had seen the real footage. He said he knew now what she had done, what she had risked, what she had refused. He said he was wrong, more wrong than he had ever been about anything, and that he would stand in that cold all morning if that was what it took. He pressed his hand flat against the freezing door, and he begged the woman he had thrown away to let him in. Inside, Asha sat on the cold bed and listened to every word. And she did not open the door. Understand why. This is the moment everyone misses. The crisis was never whether Joon was sorry. Of course he was sorry. The crisis was whether Asha would walk back into a house and a marriage that discarded her the instant a lie made it convenient. Sorry did not erase the cold. Sorry did not erase the way the whole family watched her walk out and said nothing. An apology at dawn does not undo a humiliation at midnight. Asha had spent the whole night earning the truth. She was not going to spend the morning rewarding the man who never gave her the benefit of the doubt. Not yet. Maybe not at all. And while Joon stood begging at one door, Sung was moving fast at another. Because Sung was not stupid. The moment he learned the raw footage had surfaced, he knew his window was closing. So he made his final play, the most dangerous one of the entire night. At dawn, with the house still reeling and Joon distracted and emotional, Sung moved to force a signed transfer of authority through the elders before Joon could act. He went straight to Won, the old power figure, with the original lie still freshly planted, arguing that Joon had lost control, that a leader who could be manipulated by a foreign wife was a danger to the house, and that for the good of the family, control should pass quietly to steadier hands. His hands. He had the forged story, the panic, and the timing. He only needed Won to sign. Here is where I need you to commit. Before you see how this ends, tell me in the comments right now, do you think Asha opens that door and forgives him? Or do you think she walks away for good and takes the whole house down on her own terms? Lock in your prediction, because what she actually does is something almost no one guesses. Asha opened the door, but not for Joon. She opened it because she had decided. Not summoned, not begged back into place, not rescued. She walked out of that cold annex at sunrise on her own 2 feet, past the man on his knees, and she said only one thing to him as she passed. She told him to follow her if he wanted to see what loyalty actually looked like. And she walked straight toward the main hall, where Sung was standing in front of Won with a document waiting for a signature. She walked in like she owned the dawn. Sung's face when he saw her was worth the entire freezing night. Because Asha did not come in screaming. She did not come in crying. She came in with a phone full of evidence and a calm that was far more terrifying than any rage. In front of Won, in front of the gathered elders, in front of Mina, who had crept in expecting to watch a coronation, Asha laid it all out. The raw, unedited footage, the splice in the audio, the timestamp data that proved the tampering, the envelope Sung had pushed across the table, her own voice refusing it. And then, the intercepted messages, Sung and Mina's own words, planning the fall of the house over the ashes of her marriage. She did not raise her voice once. She did not need to. She let the truth do the only thing truth has ever needed to do, which is exist where everyone can see it. Sung tried to talk over it, tried to call it another fake, tried to turn Won against her one last time. But Won was not a sentimental man. Won cared about exactly one thing, and that was the house. And the house had just watched its own second-in-command get exposed as a thief, a liar, and a traitor by the very woman he tried to throw away. The document waiting for Won's signature did not get signed. Won looked at Sung for a long, cold moment, and that look was the end of everything Sung had built. Sung's grab collapsed in front of the family he tried to steal. Mina, exposed in her own words, tried to slip toward the door and found it blocked. The approved match, the elegant woman who had whispered poison all night, was finished, removed from the inner circle in disgrace while the family she schemed against watched in silence. The trap they built for Asha had closed on the two of them instead, and Asha had not thrown a single punch. She had simply refused to be the fool they all assumed she was. When it was over, when Sung and Mina were gone and the hall was quiet and the cold dawn light came through the tall windows, only Asha and Joon were left standing in the wreckage of the longest night of their lives. And here is where the story earns its ending, because Joon did not get instant forgiveness. He did not get a tearful run into his arms. What he got was a conversation, the first honest one of their entire marriage. Asha looked at the man who had finally, too late, learned what she was worth, and she told him the truth. She told him that her loyalty had never been her weakness. It had been the strongest thing she ever offered him, and he had thrown it into the cold because he was too proud to ask whether the story was even true. She told him she would not come back as the wife he could discard whenever it became convenient. She would come back as an equal, as a partner, as a voice in that house that could never again be silenced or sent into the dark. Or she would not come back at all. And Joon, for the first time in his entire life, said the words. He told her he trusted her. He told her he had been wrong, completely and without excuse. He told her the house was hers as much as his, not as a gift he was granting, but as a truth he should have seen 2 years ago. He did not ask her to forgive him quickly. He asked her, simply, to let him spend the time it took to deserve it. If you have ever been underestimated by the very people who should have known you best, share this video with someone who needs to hear how that story can end. Because the woman they tried to freeze out walked into the warmest seat in the house, and she got there without ever lowering herself to their level. The film closes on a quiet rooftop as the sun fully rises over the city. Asha and Joon stand at the railing, not touching, not yet, but standing as equals for the first time, with the cold of that terrible night finally behind them. The empire is steadier than it has ever been, because the woman they tried to discard turned out to be the one holding it together all along. And far below, in a quiet room full of glowing screens, Jay sits alone and quietly archives one last file. He pauses over it for just a moment, this one document he has chosen not to show anyone, not even Asha. A small smile, a small secret. Because the Hanu house always has another secret waiting in the dark. But that, my friends, is a story for another night. Asha's chapter is finished, and she finished it on her own terms. The man who made his wife sleep in the cold spent his dawn begging at her door. And the woman the whole family underestimated walked out of the freezing dark and into the light as the most powerful person in the room. If this story moved you tonight, do me one last favor. Leave a comment and tell me what you would have done in Asha's place. Give this video a like so more people find it, and I will see you in the next story.